Yeah, you could look at it that way. It's also, I like to look at it a little simpler because people argue is it heaven or not, but I think it's more like they weren't ready for anything.
Mm.
They weren't ready for kingdom work.
Mm.
They had no light. They were in darkness.
Yeah. Maybe
And
a better way of putting it is, are we ready to, is there even half of Christians ready to administer the way they need to administer to the people
there you go.
in the next revival?
That's better. A couple things. One is there is revival happening right now all around us. Matter of fact, in my own church, I see people coming in the doors. I had 4 new people last week, yesterday. 3 of them rededicated life to the Lord.
Wow.
Just a chance they happened to be in the building. One of them happened to live a couple of houses down. Like random stuff. I have people who've come in randomly and their whole family is changed now.
Wow.
Like, this is the problem. We don't count those things as revival.
Mm.
We hear of revivals of the past, and it has to be the same as that.
Well, also,
and that's not necessarily true at all.
Yeah, not necessarily true. Also, we look at it in context now in history. You're like, oh, from this period of time, from this period of time was the Great Revival.
Right.
And it's like, there's a lot more context during that era and a lot more buildup that led to that kind of stuff. It wasn't like, boom, it's 5 years and everybody was saved and then the world went back to normal. No, it's like a constant thing that happened, and it was called the Great Revival. And I bet you there was tons of smaller communities that didn't have the historians that wrote history. That saw a ton of revival, and they got written about, and they were connected to something that happened like 3 years ago, or 2 years in the future, whatever.
I prefer the term awakening.
Awakening.
Okay?
Yeah.
The word revival has really been hijacked as a catchphrase, and to be honest, marketed. It's marketed.
Marketing.
Oh, churches use the word revival in their names now. Or they use revival for services, or they use revival for their brand worship.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's gross.
That's kind of
it's become a marketable corporate thing. It's literally propaganda. I mean, it is. We've propagandized the word revival, which grosses me out. I like the word awakening because it's not used that way as much in our world, and it has deeper roots, I feel, from the colonial days. Go ahead. What were you going to say, David?
Well, I was going to say that it's just how language is, because revival, like a revival means like something that was dead is brought back to life.
Right.
So if you really look at it from a linguistic perspective, the idea that, like, you know, our hearts were just like dead or asleep,
right,
to as far as the things of God, and then all of a sudden it's come awake, it's come alive,
right,
and now we're walking in it. It's a very powerful thing, but then, you know, people do what people do, and they spun the meaning around and robbed it of that depth.
So, do you guys remember the Ashbury revival last year?
Yeah.
So it was, I want to say it was 90 days. Or went longer. It might have went longer. It was just a worship, continuous 24-hour worship. And I mean, we're talking thousands.
That's the one in Tennessee?
Yeah.
No, it was somewhere.
Ashbury's the name of the town. I don't know where it is. I think it's Tennessee.
I can't remember.
Yeah, it's in the middle of nowhere. It was literally in the middle of nowhere. Very small town. Well, it was 10,000 people town.
Well, it was a kind of prominent Christian college.
There was a college there for sure, but it was.
I mean,
small.
that's what it was.
Yeah,
that's what it was. It was the
seminary.
It was the people. It was the students in that. It was the students just continuously worshiping in that college's chapel.
It's a Methodist college.
Funny tangent. I looked up Ashbury. I clicked cityofasbury.com. I go to the boom, alert pops up. It says hydrant flushing September 30th to October 1st.
Public announcement, everybody. Public announcement. If you're in the city of Ashbury.
So if you're in Ashbury,
watch out, the hydrants are flushing.
Close the lid of the toilets, please.
But yeah, so it was like, it's kind of interesting how that went on.
Iowa.
That went on basically as long as the administration of the college was willing to tolerate it.
Actually, that's not 100% true. The college kept it going.
Did they?
It was in Kentucky. Sorry,
they
Kentucky.
purposefully left it alone. When they had a lot of other leaders trying to shut it down.
At first they did, but eventually it was...
Well, they had to.
They had to shut it down.
It wasn't them tolerating it. It was the city made them. Big difference.
Oh, it was the city that made them.
Yeah,
okay.
Whoever pastored that awakening or revival, whatever you want to call it, did an amazing job. This is my whole point. It started natural, just kids, kids worshiping, and the people were getting touched by the Lord, and people started coming in, and more people getting touched by the Lord. I watched probably 25 of the testimonies on TikTok I want to know if it was real.
Yeah.
Because I've seen a lot of fake revivals. Oh, we're having a revival meeting, everybody. It's just a worship service.
Yeah.
It's just a worship service. Don't be calm. Oh, it's at our church, so now it's a revival meeting. And no. Sure, you can do that, and you could pray for revival. I'm all about that.
Yeah.
But don't make it about you. As soon as you make it about you, you're losing the whole point of revival. It's for everybody. And that was kind of the whole point of Ashbury is there was people from all different denominations already there in that service. And it continued. Now, here's what happened. A lot of big name Christian leaders started showing up.
Oh, yeah.
And this is my favorite part. They went straight to the leadership and said, I want front row seats because I'm this and I'm this and I have this ministry and my church has this many members. You know, I have the third biggest church in America. I should have the front row seats. And the pastor who was over the service said, we are giving no assigned seats, but there's seats up in the balcony.
Ooh.
And so you had all these big name preachers trying, because they wanted to get on camera.
They
wanted to brand the revival with their name, their church name, and it was so gross.
Where do you go to find out about people telling about that specific thing? Like,
you look up testimonies of Ashbury, yeah.
Well, like I'm talking about that. I'm talking about.
There was some news reports I looked at. Ruslan did a really good breakdown of it when it happened. I follow him a lot, and I was following him at the time, and he did a really good breakdown of the pastors, and he had sources. You can look up Ruslan. He's a YouTuber. Anyway, so my point was, the church tried to come in and brand it their own name out of pride and arrogance, like Saul was, right? And they tried to hijack a revival for publicity's sake. And to be honest, I kind of feel those types of things do kill revivals. When men try to get their hands on it. It reminds me of the Ark of the Covenant when they moved it with the cart. You remember that? This is the same line. We're in the same era as David here. And David moved it, and the priests were supposed to carry it according to the law. And he had a cart made by human hands carry it.
Yeah.
And it bumped, and a soldier went to touch it. What was his name? Do you remember his name?
I believe it was
Uzzah. Yeah, maybe that's right. Anyway, killed him. He touched it killed him. And that was the cost of trying to put the presence of God in something man constructed.
Yep.
And that's the problem with the church today, is we're trying to control the presence of God in our own structure. And it will not start a revival. It will quench the spirit every time. David, you remember a lot of this, but there was 2 times in my life I've seen the presence of God crushed. One was years ago. We started a youth worship night. Man, I must have been 19. I was very young. I don't know if you were old enough to even be there, David.
Are you talking about teen church?
Yeah,
I was there.
You were like 12. Like you were young.
There.
Yeah, David was there, and a lot of my friends were worship leaders and in ministry with me at the time, and God was moving. We saw several salvations a night. On Sunday nights, we started it at a neighboring church. Well, some other church leaders in the community got wind of it and felt like it was divisive. They felt like it was starting another church and trying to take away from the other churches in the community. So we had some big meetings about it, different pastors yelling at each other and arguing. And, basically the person who helped us get it started got crushed to the point where they just gave up, threw it in my lap, and I kept it going. But I'm telling you right now, it was never the same.
No.
David was there. I think David came every night, and we met Sunday nights for 2 or 3 years after that. Maybe a lot. Maybe I think it went 7 years. We kept it going on Sunday nights, and it was just because youth group was kind of the fun night, and this was your time with God night, seek God night, and it was awesome. It was a great idea, and it was amazing. Big shout out to Tracy Prey for her starting it. It was her heart to start it, and I ended up taking it over, but it was not. It sucked the way man tried to hijack it. And the other time, David was also there.
Oh, yeah.
David has been there for all the times that man has stopped God in our community. And he was on the other side. He was on the right side of the war every time. Anyway, we started a worship service. David actually and I partnered with other ministry leaders and a couple from Reading, and we started a thing called The Shift in Orland. And it was a worship service. Same idea. It was a word. I think we did Sunday nights.
Well, the idea was we were having worship nights.
Yes.
But the idea for it was actually that it was supposed to be a youth ministry.
Yes.
Where youth of the community could find a place to come.
Yep.
Find a place where they could learn about God, where they could get discipled.
Yep.
Where they could get on fire for God.
Yeah.
And then we were going to send them back out into the churches of the community to bring revival to the community.
Right. Genius. It didn't happen that way.
No.
David and I were in those meetings, and God was moving. I saw salvations there. I saw many kids come to the Lord at the Shift. Yeah. We called it the Shift. And it was multi-denominational. It was great. There are a few things changed. The one thing I think that really started it going downhill, and I mean, David may have a different opinion on it than me, but I was in one area, he was in another area of the ministry. But it's the church that kind of sent the leadership to originally start this, saw people getting saved and changed and wanted to make it a church, which is fine.
Well, I mean, the building we were using was a church.
For sure. It makes sense. They would want to make it a church.
So it was a church of this particular denomination that had fallen into reproach.
Right.
Basically what had happened is people were letting like homeless people just live in there, and they trashed the place, and it was terrible. So the denomination sent this couple from Reading, because that's where the regional head was, sent this couple to basically, they just shut it down.
Yeah.
Clean it up, shut it down, get anybody who might have still been in there out of there, and get this church shut down.
That was the idea.
That was the original plan. And then while they were doing that in Orland, they had a vision from God about what they could do with it.
Yep.
So the denomination after a little while wanted to reopen the church and wanted the couple that they had sent to start to learn to be pastors.
Right, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but it wasn't what God was doing in the moment. And obviously the church leadership in Reading didn't know that. I don't think they understood the depth of what God was doing. And me being in the community, I saw it, and I was excited. I was like, this is the Lord moving in our community. And it ended up being, the weight of it all ended up just kind of dividing people. And there were some people who fell from the Lord and back into sin. And the denomination basically came in and shut it down again. And it dissolved.
Well, yeah, it just kind of more like what ended up happening was the couple, they had some things happen in their life.
Right.
And they're like, we can't do this anymore. We're going back to Reading. And basically, the one kind of positive note of that is that during the time while the Shift was like turning into actually turning into a church, a Spanish-speaking congregation had come along to, they were just wanted to rent the building to hold their services.
Right.
And the district was like, well, the way this denomination operates, we can't actually let you do that. But if you guys wanted to become part of the denomination and actually become a congregation of this church, then you're more than welcome to do that. And so it was kind of cool. We formed like a half English, half Spanish church. We had our own services. But then, basically the English side just kind of collapsed in on itself.
Right.
And afterwards, the district is like, they're just like, whatever. We got a thriving Spanish-speaking church there, so now we're not going to send anybody else.
Well, and there is always blessings through the corruption of man. I'm not saying that was corruption, but the enemy destroyed it.
Yeah.
Well, however you want to dice it. I'm not saying who's at fault.
Yeah.
Satan was involved in dividing it, just like the teen church thing.
Yep.
And those are the two times I've seen God move, and the two times man's hands got on it, and it died. It just like like the cart and the Ark of the Covenant. And I, as a pastor, have always taken note of that because those are two pivotal times in my life. Now that I have more authority in the community, I am taking notice to the past that I don't want to repeat it. And I do not want to be the one that gets my hands on something and crushes it.
And that was a really big,
that was a big thing,
like learning opportunity for me too, because you kind of pieced out earlier than I did.
Yeah, before everything kind of collapsed.
So you kind of pieced out right at around the time when they decided to transition into reopening the church.
Right.
And I stayed on. And so, but I think it was good that I stayed on because I got to see exactly how everything went down. And it was like the thing that it could have been, it wasn't that anymore. Yeah. Like there was a change that took place.
It was different. Yeah. And that's what I saw too. And one of the things, there's some more behind the scenes baseball I can't talk about for people's lives, and stuff. But one thing God really showed Mandy and I through that is that I didn't want to be part of man's structure. It wasn't what God called me to do. And because God wants me to have that same heart as a pastor. And I think God was teaching me that. And I had to have some hard conversations with people I helped start something with and say, I'm out. I felt like I was betraying him. I'll be honest. I felt like I was mutinying the ship. And I know that's not what it was, but I felt that way because I loved everybody, and I felt like I was really helping motivate everything. And I had to. The Lord wanted me to do that and have the hard conversations because he wanted me to learn to listen to him and not people, right? And that's where I was. You and I were in different realms in those areas and roles. But we got to be careful with the presence of God. We cannot brand it. We cannot control it. We cannot, especially when it comes to pride and arrogance and your church name and that kind of stuff. Right now, there is a group of 20 some odd 20-year-olds meeting in Hamilton City. And they're doing a Bible study. That's a lot of flipping 20-year-olds for Hamilton City. You know what I mean? In my opinion, and they're growing. More and more college age are coming. Wow. And I have 2 or 3 from my church going, and I'm going to go check it out and see what it's about. It's just a Bible study. It's not even a worship night or anything. It's just a Bible study. And they're studying Revelation together. And I'm like, I want to go find that out. Yeah, what's that about? To me, that's God moving. Obviously, I got to find out more about it. But when I hear people gathering together to read the Word of God, I'm like, let's go. Let's go see God together. Let's partner together. Not for me to get my hands on it, but for me to encourage them and say, run. You don't even have to ever go to my church. Just pursue God with all you have.
That's right.
And that's the heart the church needs. And regardless of denomination, we should be cheering each other on to pursue God.